Good morning and welcome, Patriot Radio News Hour. I'm Joe Jaquint, CEO of the Patriot Trading Group, and our toll-free number 800-951-0592, the website at allamericangold.com. And, well, at least there's no more hole in the ceiling. The AC unit, the new one is up and in, and it was, let me tell you, it was a hot one here in the office yesterday, but we've gotten through it. I got to say this, we were bowling last night, my bowling team, and the All-Star game was on, the Major League All-Star game. And, the bowling alley's got, you can't miss it. There's TVs running the length of the alleys, and they're playing the All-Star game. And I'm watching the pitcher, and I'm like, I don't even know who that guy is. The guy at bat, don't know who he is. I didn't know a single player that was out there, when they scanned their face. And then they were making a pitching change, and here comes Dusty Baker. And I'm like, hey, wait a minute, I know that guy. So, Jason, I don't know if my knowledge of baseball and baseball players is any indication of where sports are headed. It wasn't a good sign because I didn't know any of those players.
There was a time early in American history where sports was just a side thing that you did once in a while. And you didn't turn these guys into heroes or anything. And I think we're kind of heading back towards that, Joe, where, sports aren't really that important as they once were just a scant couple decades ago.
Yeah, it's just it just struck me as odd. I'm like, and these are the All-Stars. It's fine, you don't recognize certain players on this team, but this was the All-Star game, and I would have thought, okay, I'll recognize a couple of guys. Yeah, no, not
Nope.
Dusty Baker. And for those of you who's like, who's Dusty Baker? Dusty Baker was a player when I was a kid who's now a manager. He's probably like 80 years old. He was the only person that I recognize.
Well, Joe, I think the biggest difference has been that it's really become about how much money can you make versus playing the game. It doesn't seem like they've said for decades, it's a business, but now it's like all they talk about is the contracts and the money being made and how much can you bet on it. So it's kind of just gone to a way of making money, I guess, or betting money. So I think it's
well, and again, it's happening everywhere. Not that. Since we're going down the rabbit hole, UCLA and USC joined the Big Ten.
I saw that.
All because of money, right? And the whole college landscape is changed with money. But let's face it, when you have the type of inflation that we're seeing, it's always about the money, isn't it?
Yeah, you gotta buy food.
Right? You got to figure out, okay, if it's going to cost 10% more or 20% more, how do I get more?
Yep. In a time when it seems like people are always getting less and less, kind of disguised, Joe.
Right. Well, that's how it really works, right? They want to celebrate the uber rich, right? Let's celebrate Elon Musk or Bill Gates, or to give you that carrot, right? Hey, you could be uber rich too, right? But the realities are, for every one of those, what 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 people falling into poverty. That's really the price that's being paid out there when you really look at where we're at.
Yeah, Joe, we report this stuff every day as to what company's doing this or what bank is doing that, and all it ever spells, at least especially since 2020, it just spells this slope that's going downward, and it's like, when is it going to happen, or how fast is it going to happen? So really, it's all about timing. The only thing nobody can really figure out is, well, when is this thing really going to get bad? What's the timing of it? How fast and when? And that's what we're here for. So it's kind of like when it's happening slowly. That's like that great time to start fortifying yourself financially, especially when it comes to your savings, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely. When we get back, we've got an update on
Joe. I lost you. I think I lost you. It sounded like a little bit of static, and Joe just disappeared. So I'll We got about another minute of the first segment. Joe's going to talk about what we're going to cover, and a lot of times Joe and I don't discuss specifically what he's bringing to the show. So I'm waiting for what he's going to talk about just as much as you are. So maybe a technical difficulty. We'll get on top of that as fast as we can. But as Joe was talking about, we were just saying, look, the standard of living absolutely is dropping. I was actually watching a video about a day or two ago. And this older gentleman, and he's been watching economics and spending and inflation since the 50s. Since he was a kid, he was interested in money. And he's trying to make the case that the standard of living is higher. Well, the way he said that is, because more people have more access to things that normally would have been something that upper society people would have, having access. But to get these things that upper society have, it's really just it's been sort of a shell game. It used to be in the 1950s. You had the husband would work, the wife would stay at home, take care of the kids, take care of the house. The husband would have vacation every year. He would have a retirement money that would come in, and it was all done off that one income. America had a high standard of living. The standard of living is not getting better. And that's what the Patriot Trading Group is here for, to give you the numbers, give you the facts, give you some stories, and then help you jump into a little bit of gold and silver, which over a long enough timeline is always going up with the inflation, which is built into our economic system. We'll be right back, hopefully with Joe. 800-951-0592. Joe kind of popped in there for a moment, and we're having technical difficulties. I know that Joe had Arizona office had some problems with the air conditioning, and Joe was telling me he had some water problems. I don't know if it's related or not, but Joe comes in on a way that is very reliable and makes him sound really good when he's on the air here, and that's what we're trying to achieve. But unfortunately, Joe, it sounds like you're trying to get back in. Are you there? So I'll just wing it without him until we figure it out. Jack and Joe will.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. You're good. That's perfect. That's perfect.
All right. Well, maybe
you sound really good too.
Maybe the mic went dead.
Oh, that does happen. It did sound so. A little bit of static can knock out a mic or make it sound really bad. And I heard a little fizzle before you went out the last segment. So maybe you figured it out.
Well, I don't know.
This sounds good. Hey. You sound fantastic right now. You're way better.
All right.
So.
Well, we're gonna go with that. And 800-951-0592, Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason here, trying to figure it out on a hump day. And we're talking about standards of living. Right, we're talking about, hey, they love to celebrate, don't they? They love to celebrate. Hey, look at this billionaire, and look at this, millionaire guy, and you can be too, right? That used to be America. America was really all about the middle class, and what the central bank has done, and very simply, this is how it works. Believe it or not. This is actually working by design. What is actually working by design? The fiat money. This is how fiat money works. Starts out, right, with all the best intentions. But just understand what it was the bankers really wanted. Why did they want this power so badly? And get rid of gold and be able to print money for no other reason than to, quote unquote, stimulate the economy. Well, obviously, number one, they get to make money on it, but number two, the thing about it is bankers hate bad times. Why? Well, because people don't pay. Right? Makes sense. And then they've got to go under it, and they don't like having to keep money in reserve. They hate it. Right? And of course, it's only prudent that they do that. But again, they don't want to do that. And so by design, by creating the central bank, the whole process really was, hey, whenever there's any problems, go print more money. And listen, that works really well for a while. And when you think about our central bank, the first, obviously in the first 20 years, it was a disaster. And 1933, they got the gold out. That was their biggest goal, get rid of gold. Now we can just create money. If you actually listen to these idiots, they're very smart. Have you ever been in conversations with really smart people? And yet, they can end up saying the dumbest things, but it sounds really good. That's our central bank. They say things that don't make sense, but they say it so well you almost believe it. And then, of course, when you've got the stock cheering channels, right, that, oh, yeah, wow, they're so great and wonderful. I mean, they parade them out 24 hours a day. It really is impressive. But don't be fooled. All of us know you can't just print money. You don't print your way into prosperity. That is not how it works. And what's happened now, the more they print, it took some time, didn't it? It took a while. And really, it didn't really start in earnest. Taking the gold out was step one. But really what they figured out is, man, until we can get these foreign governments off the gold standard, we really can't do what we want. So when Nixon closes the gold window in 71, right, that's when we really see this avalanche of debt. And really, if you go back and you look at the numbers, as an example, there was not even 3 million people on food stamps in 1971. Now we've got, 43 to 45 million people on food stamps. So we've added about 100,000 or 100 million people population-wise. And by and large, 4 out of every 10 people that's been added to the United States population is on food stamps. That doesn't count all the other government-assisted programs. But the other thing that's happening, especially in the last, say, 20 years, is we're seeing, ever since the tech bubble blew up, we're seeing this great downgrade from upper middle class to middle class to lower middle class, and lower middle class into poverty. And Jason, this is what happens when you just print money and print money and print money and print money. Now eventually you need so much more money to buy basic things. Even if your wages are, let's face it, 1971, what was the minimum wage? $1.25? Right. Something like that. Now, technically, right now, the minimum wage is $7.25. I mean, that's a joke, but most states, it's significantly higher than that. But the problem is the minimum wage where it's at now. Let's just say minimum wage right now is $15. Because I think in most states it's close to that. Everybody knows to have the same purchasing power that you did 50 years ago, that wage, Jason, needs to have doubled, right? We need to be making $30 an hour. So it's not a great surprise to see, hey, wait a minute, these guys have done such a great job since we've gotten off the gold standard completely, that they've put 40 million more Americans into poverty. And this next one, because we're getting ready for the next bursting of the bubble, right? This next burst, Jason, I wouldn't be surprised to see this number jump to 60 million.
Right, and the lowering of the standard of living is something that's very well disguised, just like they try to disguise inflation. As an example, some of the ways they hide inflation is you got your cereal box with, 16 ounces of cereal in it. Well, you pay the same price, and now there's only 14 ounces of cereal in it. Same thing with lower standard of living. They keep telling you that things are better and you can buy more things and your life is going to be better with technology and advancement of things. But really, you seem to have to work a few extra hours to get it. And what you end up getting seems to be a lesser quality of the thing you were wanting to get to begin with. But you get to claim that you have it, whatever it is, Joe, right? I got a raise. It's great. It's great. My standard of living is higher because I got a raise. I got more money coming in. But, of course, the inflation's higher. That's your lower standard of living, right, Joe? Everything is hidden. They do everything they can to make you feel like you're doing okay. Because what would happen if everybody suddenly figured it out all at once? Hey, we are not doing better. Things are getting worse, and we want to fix it. Then what would happen, Joe? We might actually see the change we want to see, not just in the individual trying to fix it for themselves.
Yeah, and we look at what's the bellwether for middle class? Probably home ownership, wouldn't you say? That's probably
home lease to ownership. I mean, it used to be home ownership, Joe. It's a home mortgage ship. Now that's getting hard for people to get into home mortgage ship, right?
Yeah, existing home sales. This is a June number. This was just an outright, I don't know how the word collapse is probably the best word I could use. It's the fifth straight month of declines. This month, 5.4%. You're like, 5%, that's not that bad. Oh, believe me, that is really bad. Home sales, now these are existing home sales, down almost 15% year over year. Falling housing affordability. That's another way of saying, hey, you're slipping class-wise. When they're saying that, hey, you know what, the average American out there now can no longer be able to afford a home. By the way, properties on market still not horrible. Right, the number of homes for sale did rise for the first time in 3 years. So that's the first jump in existing inventory for home sales. So we're going to watch all of this play out, right? But again, this is just another sign that the standard of living in the United States is deteriorating. We had oil inventory reports out. Unleaded gas. Now, we'll see if it continues next week. I don't want to get too excited over a 1 week number, but the inventory on unleaded gas, it was the third largest drop in demand in the history of this report. They've been tracking this thing, Jason, since like the 70s. But it's the third largest drop in demand on record, and saying that, hey, guess what? The average American out there is having trouble filling up the gas tank. And again, I don't know where all this ends. In Europe, automobile registrations, all-time low. As far as automobile registration goes, you can see it. Why do I bring up Europe? Because it's the same situation. This standard of living crisis, Jason, it's global.
Right, and you've been mentioning demand destruction for a long time, and simply put is when people can't afford to buy stuff, they just don't buy it. Especially, gas is important. There's a lot, transportation and communication. Those are the two most important things beyond your energy and your food and your housing. And but you'll cut your communications and your transportation costs first before you cut the food and the housing. And that's exactly what you just stated. Look, people aren't putting gas in the car because I don't have to drive over to the weekend thing we used to do once a month, where we drive 50, 80 miles to see grandma's house and have a gathering. We're just not going to do that because how many people are starting to compute? Well, I get 20 miles to the gallon. At 80 miles, it's 4 gallons of gas at $5 a gallon. It's $20 just to get to grandma's house and $20 to get back. I'm not going to spend $40 to go to grandma's house this month. That's where that demand going down, Joe. That's where I see it coming from.
Listen, and when I tell you it's the third largest drop in demand on record, the only weeks, and this is a week-over-week number, there's only obviously 2 others that were worse. Guess what weeks those were? The first 2 weeks of COVID.
See.
When the government said, hey, you can't go to work. This is what I'm saying. So really, when you look at this week over week, now again, it's only a week. And I don't know, it's the government, who knows? And next week this could reverse. I don't think it will, but this just shows you, Jason, how quickly this can happen, where you're talking about, existing home sales, one of the largest drops that we've seen. Refinancing of homes, refinancing, it's down like 90% year over year. Car registrations, right? All of these things are adding up to one big mess.
And Joe, I'll say this because I had made a mention that, look, there's kind of a glut in things that are happening right now. There's a lot of stores are full up. A lot of stores suddenly went from shortages to being full up on many items. And the Fed, what do they talk about? Soft landing, soft landing, soft landing. Well, they can't have a soft landing if they have too much stuff on the shelves and too much energy. Because look, you just said energy use has gone way down, Joe. Kind of fits with the whole Biden not wanting to have more energy and how Germany is shutting down their nuclear plants. You bring down the supply of stuff so you can keep the prices level and have your so-called soft landing. I think that's what they're attempting to do, Joe.
800-951-0592, Joe and Jason, Patriot Radio News Hour, and, we're talking standard of living, California. And here's another one. Hundreds of thousands now of farm lands and acres, hundreds of thousands of acres becoming fallow as, once again, California, which produces a tremendous amount of the U.S. food production, is having to implement these unprecedented cuts in water. And Jason, I'm going to tell you right now, they've got a lot more cuts coming. This is how bad the water situation is. I don't know if you guys saw the pictures at the Hoover Dam. It was either yesterday or the day before. One of the turbines caught on fire. I mean, we avoided disaster there. But I mean, if that thing hadn't been put out as quickly as it had, we could have most of the West in complete darkness right now. But this farmland, let me tell you what they're saying. Farmers now in jeopardy. The future for growing crops is coming to an end. Drought conditions continue to worsen, and they're saying that fields are drying up. And the University of California told Bloomberg this week that 800,000 acres of farmland will be unworked this year. That is double the amount from last year. And here's the problem, Jason. I think next year it's going to double again. So think about it. We went from 400,000 acres unused to 800,000. I think next year, Jason, we could see well over, we could actually get to 2 million plus acres of farmland wiped out. And so when they talk about inflation, and I know Wall Street wants inflation to be over, Jason, it's not over, not even close.
No, Joe, and I'll say this once again. Americans live a higher standard of living than most countries in the world, and so if it's getting harder because of inflation to pay the bills, you make cuts. Now, you don't cut food out, Joe, but you buy cheaper foods and you buy less food when you have trouble buying it to begin with. So once again, all of this lower supply of things, Joe, that looks like we're heading towards. It's almost like it's staged to be like this on purpose, so that at the end of this crash that's coming, they don't have like a hard bounce back into even higher inflation on the back end of it. I really believe, Joe, that they're really constraining the supply of things, everything in food, on purpose. I see it as purposeful.
I want to be clear to people so they understand the magnitude of how important California is to food in the United States. California's Central Valley, all by itself, produces more than half of all fruits, more than half of all vegetables, and more than half of all nuts grown in the United States.
Yep. Yeah, it's huge, Joe. It's
That's
huge.
what we're talking about here. It's one thing to talk about some vacated farmland in Pinell County, Arizona. Okay, that's bad enough. But when you're talking about Central Valley, California, you are talking about really, let's face it, the when it comes to fruits, vegetables, and nuts, there's none bigger.
And Joe, if I'm right, and this is somehow staged, this is being done on purpose. There are decisions being made. What if they make a mistake in California? What if they miscalculate what they're trying to do to save their financial system? Then how horrible could it actually get? Then you might actually see not enough food to feed Americans. That would be. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? I don't trust these guys, Joe, that make these decisions. What if they make a mistake, and they make a lot of them, don't they?
They make a lot, and this is a huge one. And again, anybody that had an IQ higher than room temperature knew what was going on in the Colorado River. Nobody did anything.
Nope.
They just, well, maybe it'll snow next year. And just common sense things could have averted it. But here's how bad it is. Here's what Bloomberg is saying about this. They're talking about this, the water being cut off, wiping out decades of investment in farmland. Decades. And they're saying now that in California now, they're talking about major operations that had senior rights. And like Arizona, we've got junior rights at the water. We've cut more water than anybody else. And guess what? Next year, we got to cut even more. But this is senior rights. These were farms and farmlands that they thought, okay, only when it gets really bad are these guys going to get cut. And most people thought they would never lose those rights that are being wiped out, Jason.
And that's just the way it works, Joe, because I've being in Colorado, I've met with a lot of just people I know over the years, but also here at the radio station. I talk to guys and some of these farmers that buy a little gold, and they talk about their position on whatever river. Hey, I'm in number 6 position, or I'm in number 15 position, and it gives you sort of your claim on the water that's coming through there. You know, you have more rights to the water the closer to the source you are. And these are things that have been established a long time ago, and you better believe that the powers that be, Joe, the rich guys like the Bill Gates of the world, they've been buying up a lot of those rights, trying to put themselves in a better position. And how would you trust Bill Gates if he's a couple positions up the river from you so that you're going to get your water at all, Joe? That's kind of what's going on. A war over water. It was Michael Burry, the Big Short guy. After he got out of that short trade against the housing market, he got into water. That was 2015, Joe.
Yeah, this is nuts. I mean, California by itself produces 25% of all food in the United States. Not to mention, obviously, more than half of all fruits and vegetables and nuts in the United States. And Bloomberg is saying that the situation is going to get much worse. And of course, that just means what? Things cost more. We go back to standard of living. Obviously, you're a farmer. You don't have the right rights. You're out of business, right? I mean, you don't have water. You can't plant crops. I mean, it's just that simple.
Think about the rest of the world, Joe. Think about the rest of the world. When maybe sometime next year they start to hear the words, the United States is going to stop exporting food to your country. What do you think the rest of the world, they'll panic. We do a lot. That's the one thing we still export a lot of is food, Joe.
Yeah, it all remains to be seen. But again, these are the realities that are happening. When we get back, we're going to talk about Russia and gas to Germany. I've got an update there. And then, is Mexico's largest oil company getting ready to go bankrupt? What? Yeah, we got that next. 800-951-0592, Patriot Radio News Hour, Joe and Jason, and on this Wednesday. So we've got an update on the gas situation when it comes to Europe. President Vladimir Putin was out this morning and saying that Russia will resume gas flows to Europe. Here's the caveat. So right now, before the shutdown, and again, this was the shutdown that currently is going on, that lasts until Friday. That was a normal shutdown for maintenance. They were, at the time of the shutdown, they were pumping about 40% of the gas that they normally did. Putin, when speaking today, said that Russia will resume flows to Europe, but added the flows might fall to 20% of capacity starting next week. So, Jason, I guess a little bit of good news, bad news. Hey, we're going to give you some gas, but it's going to be a whole lot less. Not real good news for Germany. I guess it's better than no gas, but this is nowhere near enough.
It sounds like Russia's kind of flexing their muscles with their control in that situation. Hey, we'll give you some. All right, you've been asking for it and being, so we'll get you your oil and your gas. Well, you know what? I'm just going to give you 20% of what you want. it's like, hey, you need $1,000 to pay a bill, and you're asking someone, a friend or a family member, to, hey, I need $1,000 to pay the bill. It's like, oh, you need me? Well, I'll give you $200, and maybe you can come back and ask me next week, and I'll reconsider. It's kind of what it sounds like, doesn't it, Joe? One party has the power, and the other party is kind of begging for it.
Yeah, this is a bad, and again, this does not bode well for us either. Higher natural gas prices, just again, more expensive, not to mention everything that Germany's producing gets dragged down. Defaults, right? We started talking about defaults. News out of Mexico today. Pemex, Mexico's state-run oil company, Moody's, downgrading them by 4 notches. That's huge. You rarely see that. Deep into junk territory, saying that reflecting a much higher risk of default, saying the picture is dire. They have looming debt payments this year of over $5 billion. Next year, $7.5 billion. 2024, $9 billion. And they're saying that exports from Pemex continue to plummet, Jason. The company's out of cash.
So I guess that means what, Joe? Are they going to shut down there, or what is the prognostication of what will happen if they go bankrupt?
Well, obviously, if they go bankrupt, then we have, again, this spiraling side. Who's on the other side of these trades? Does Mexico's oil capacity take a major hit? My guess is it does. Right now, Mexico will be starving for fuel. Right now, according to Bloomberg, there are approximately, I want to get the number right here, 60-plus vessels carrying imported gasoline and diesel fuel stranded off the coast of Mexico. They're saying that it is 60% of monthly supplies needed are now sitting off the ports of Mexico, unable to be unloaded. Fuel importers paying $40,000 a day while these vessels wait in line as Pemex struggles in the red. I guess, Jason, it's so bad they can't even get the fuel that they have to import unloaded.
So kind of goes back to the last story you were talking about how demand has sharply gone down. Why would you unload a ship if there's nowhere to put it? Maybe there's just not demand on buying oil, Joe. That could be the problem, and of course that would make
it is
bankrupt.
something where, again, shocking to hear it. But again, we've got to be. Listen, I think these things change very, very, very quickly, and we're going to have to see what happens because of it. And really, when we talk about, they're saying mortgage demand of all kinds, so all mortgage demand to purchase, to refi, is at a 22-year low this week. So think about that. We got to go all the way back to 2000 to find less activity in mortgage markets. We know automobile sales have suffered. Apple came out and said, "Hey, listen, we're not going to hire it. And we know we're scrapping. We normally hire 5 to 10% every year. We're not doing it." And then Netflix stock, they lost another million subscribers, but I guess it could have been worse. Their stock is rallying. People can't even afford. I don't even know what Netflix cost. $10, right? People are dropping it like flies, Jason. And again, I think it's just this demand destruction is really starting to spread here.
That's absolutely right, Joe. That's you got to cut it where you can cut it, and Netflix isn't the only place you can go to watch entertaining programs. So they'll just go somewhere else. Let's face it, there's a lot of ways to rig it so you don't have to pay for it at all. I think there's a lot of that going on, Joe. So hey, we'll be right back. Hey, I may have an update on those. Remember we used to talk about the ships off the coast of California, Joe? I'll give an update on that when we get back.
800-951-0592. By the way, food banks across the country running out of food. If you can, stop by a local food bank. Bring food. Apparently, Jason, as things continue to cost more and more people headed to food banks to make ends meet. So do your part. If you got some extra food, bring it by your local food bank. I'm sure they're going to appreciate it. Homeowners insurance rising faster than inflation. 90% of homeowners saying their annual premiums increased. I got to say this, the other 10% probably didn't even know what their premium was before.
Actually, Joe, yeah, when I bought my home in 2020, it was earlier this year that I had to, I'm sure I'm going to have to readjust it again if the prices go down for homes, but I had to go in there and up the insurance because I wasn't going to have enough replacement value because of the housing prices going up. So I think that's got to be a big part of it, Joe, and we'll see if the housing prices come down dramatically. That might cool that off a little bit, but not a comfortable situation. I've never had to call my insurance company to get my rates to go up to cover more home or home value. So it's interesting.
And you bring up a good point. A lot of people may not be aware that, hey, listen, if the home, let's just say you bought a home and I don't know, it was $300,000, and now the home is $700,000. If you haven't upped that insurance, and some people, and I hate to bring up that fire in Colorado. A lot of people learned that there. 1,000 homes burnt to the ground. They got the money for what the mortgage was, but they didn't get the actual money for what the house was really valued at, which prevented them. Hey, you know what? All those people are like, well, now what do? I can't.
Unable to rebuild.
I'm going to have to take I got to buy a house at a lower standard of living because I don't have the money.
Yeah, unable to rebuild, Joe. That's for sure. That we actually got a visit from FEMA here at the radio station as they were trying to raise money for the people that were shortened on the replacement value. And so there are a lot of those. It's funny though. They won't say who's buying them up, but somebody's buying up a whole lot of pieces of property to rebuild on, Joe, and it's not the original homeowners. They're getting their checks and moving somewhere else. So it's
because they couldn't rebuild, right? I mean, obviously. By the way, Colorado, one of the leaders, almost 18% increase in insurance for homes. On the gold side of things, we're coming to the end here. Gold's down 5%. Prices are up. We talked about it all week. We started talking about it last week. Very little inventory out there right now. $20 gold pieces today are at $21.20. I know yesterday we were at $21.10. Gold's down $5, and prices are actually up. Silver quarter, silver dimes, silver half dollars. We have those available. But right now, Jason, everywhere, and Jason sees the same thing I see. Wholesalers are dying for product.
Yeah. There's for all of the things that are going on, the prices of silver and gold staying down like this is ridiculous, because under normal supply and demand, gold and silver's prices would be up with all those other commodities that are near record highs, Joe. Just doesn't make sense. Why you should buy it when other so-called people aren't buying it, right, Joe? That's when you're supposed to get it.
That's when you do it. 800-951-0592.